Hi, everyone. Wade Franson here with another sneak peek for Created in the Image of God this coming Sunday, 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm in the studio with David French, opinion columnist for the New York Times, and we're going to be talking about media literacy in a world of echo chamber clickbait. Welcome to the studio, David.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, and so am I. This is an important topic, right? For whether you lean towards the left or right or up or down on any given issue. Today, people claim it's hard to get to the bottom of the truth, but you have a different opinion of that. You talk about media literacy and you say, no, it's actually not that hard to find out what's really going on.
Right. It's actually not very hard to find out, certainly in the broad brushstrokes of what's going on. What is more difficult is to be constantly reaffirmed in your point of view. In other words, if you are judging media by the standard that is it telling me what I already believe, then that's one measure of media. And this is the way a lot of people approach media. They approach media and they believe it is discredited the instant that media communicates to them facts or assertions that they don't like or don't want to hear. And so what ends up happening often is that people are constantly moving towards those media outlets that are reaffirming their pre-existing beliefs. And so that is creating a generation of Americans who, depending on where they operate in the political spectrum, are just operating from a completely different set of starting presumptions and often completely different sets of presumed facts. But in many ways, yes, there's a media role in that. In other words, there are media outlets, for example, that really do cater specifically to people's preconceived notions. And they very intentionally try to tell partisans on the right and left exactly what they want to hear.
Yeah,
that's a result of market demand. People want that. That's what they want. And so it is very difficult, I think, to be truly media literate in such a partisan atmosphere. But that's often because of our own choices. Certainly media plays a role in this, but we play a role in it as well.
Well, and it's symbiotic or it's codependent rather, right? Because the media companies are actually businesses and they need to make money, and clickbait, throwing red meat or blue meat out to the audience pays off, right? So because the audience here is largely religious, I want to throw out a couple of biblical analogies here. So Jesus talked about new wine in old wineskins, right? He came and he flipped the script, right? He said it's kind of the opposite of what you've always believed. And the challenge for those who would, believe in him was to accept new ideas, different ideas from the ones they'd been familiar with. You write about religion, law, culture, and even armed conflict. Another biblical analogy is from whence come wars and fighting among you. They come from your own lusts. You're carried away by your own lusts, right? So how does this factor into your work? The idea of trying to help people look at things differently and not be caught up with the stuff that, that really appeals to them for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think one of the first challenges of media literacy actually is trying to lower the degree of animosity that people feel for their political opponents. It's humanizing people is, oddly enough, one of the first steps to media literacy. Because when I said it's difficult if your entire focus is on reaffirming your prior views, what I meant was it's difficult to know the actual truth when your focus is on reinforcing your prior views. And so what is happening is that we're living in this environment where the partisan animosity is so great, the feelings, the ill will of red towards blue and blue towards red is so great that people are absolutely, totally resistant to any information that will dilute that animosity. And that's why that animosity is sort of dealing with that. Humanizing opponents is job one if you're actually wanting to create media literacy, because that animosity in many ways inoculates you against the truth. You become unwilling to hear the truth about your political opponents if that truth contradicts your previously held ideas. And that is a tremendous problem at arriving at sort of a shared sense of facts and a shared sense of understanding.
Well, David, we'll probably have to agree that when we actually record the show, you'll have to wear a red shirt and I'll wear a blue shirt, right? So we confuse the audience here. Anyway, you're not going to want to miss this show, because we're going to mix it up a bit. We're going to get deep into this topic. We're going to use examples. We're going to explore this and make it live for you. So show up 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern for Created in the Image of God this coming Sunday with David French, opinion columnist from the New York Times. See you there.